the Aquarian light, and it's accentuated by Uranus. That's not a neglect of a refined analysis, cosmological, but I think that would help a lot of people who are not cosmologically astute yet.
Morsha America asks, do we send our suits to the corporate state courts?
You would, whenever there's a claim made, those are essential rebuttals, or what you call impropria persona established for the record status. Because remember, usually when the because remember, state courts are not constitutional courts, so they're not courts. They just simply are not. However, because they're operating under with de facto authority, this is another reason why you issue bills of return of attainder. And no, other than your cover sheet of your status correction, etc., is all is needed. Not all your paperwork. That's all. These writs, fundamentally on the surface, is all they need to know. It'd be correction of status. So there's no assumed in personam jurisdiction where it does not exist. So when the pre-assumed, because remember the assumed jurisdictional in personam jurisdiction that are operative in most of the instrumentalities that's sent to you from them is with the assumptions of jurisdiction via the nom de guerre or the misclassification of the being in the first place. This is why it's only necessary to send even the cover of the status correction. All the other instrumentality is not even necessary because it's your business, not theirs. Their only business as being government or claiming to have authority of government, etc., in any capacity is enforcement of the Constitution and treaty. And if that's not presented to you, their position is fraudulent. They have no other service to you. Keep that in mind. And this is back to the problem also that many people have of expecting things from these people who are claiming government who are not government, never was. Government has no rights to give you or to afford you. Government has only duties and obligations via treaty and constitution. If you write that down and keep that in mind, you'll know how you're supposed to be talking to these beings.
Okay, Amin Bey asks, since the organic constitution has 7 articles and 10 amendments, does that mean everything after the 10th amendment is fraudulent, even if their dates were before the coup d'etat of 1871?
All things, see, this is the deal. All introductions to the Constitution for the United States that took place after 1781, etc., are de facto. That's fact.
Okay. Patrick Jean-Marie asked, how do we sue the state's attorney general for damages produced by the state of?
This is, again, constitutional and treaty, because keep in mind, treaty and constitutional enforcement is the platform. The platform by which all nation states deal with other nation states in international affairs is through a consular venue. Because the people have not been enforcing the Constitution as Drew Ali commanded them to do, Article 3, Section 2 would be indicative of the ministers and the consular positions and the ambassadors' positions of any particular nation state to deal with any controversy concerning peoples or properties in the enforcement of treaties. So that would be United States law of a general and permanent character in force, etc. Title 22, Title 22, yeah, Chapter 22, Section 141, 142, 143, etc. And this is essentially the fundamentals that I've talked about for the last 30 some odd years in lesson book 14A1, 14A, 14A1. 14A1 is the original text with all of the general footnotes, and 14, lesson book 14, is the general abridged copies that have been floating around with people for the last 25, 30 years or so. But essentially, that the venue, the proper venue would be consular, and this is where people who claim to be government in any framework whatsoever, doesn't matter what club they belong to, what so-called religion they claim. This is universal principle. Your communication platform is from a consular venue with them, not with yourself, but with them.
Okay. Here's a question for Knee Relieve Chronicle. Dr. G, please ask Todd just how bad is the shadow government secret cloning of everyday citizens and replacement with nanobot controlled humans?
You can see what you're dealing with when you're talking about shadow government is essentially still dom diversus and unum sanctum operations. They're given a different name, but it's the same thing. Same entity, same persons by virtue of what is known as corporate write this down, you all, corporate descendancy. And so the operations of the United States Corporation Company, i.e. often referred to as the corporations, etc., is really unum sanctum operations. That's the fact. Also known as the U.S. democracy. It is same unum sanctum operations. Also known as the U.S. without qualification. Because remember, the United States is a political metaphor that is used by many nation states. As an example, San Salvador is United States. Brazil is United States. Mexico is United States. But that's part of their political designation. But you notice that at North America, there's no national name. As an example, Mexico, North America, and South America. It's part of North America of the continent, right? And you'll see Estados Mexico. You'll see see Brazil, Estados Unidos do Brasil. So that's United States of Brazil. That's America. Brazil is America. But you see that Brazil is the nation state. Mexico is the nation state. You notice that the partnership with Canada, the United States, it doesn't have a national name. It's just a corporate designation. You see? And most people never pick that up. And many people who, particularly those who don't want their so-called members, club members to know civics, never point that out to them because they don't want you to recognize that you're operating under a fraudulent platform. Because many of them are, say, what you might say in partnership with some kickbacks in the background. One of the kickbacks is known as the 501c3 corporation or non-disclosure agreement not to rock the boat, called 501c3. And so they won't talk about things that we're talking about because they really never have been and aren't in the business of helping to liberate humanity or the people or help them in self-determination, but are in fact cleverly and surreptitiously aiding in their subjugation and getting a benefit for maintaining that dead status. This is why you'll see the corporate operatives will always promote any so-called organizations that run around calling people black Negroes and talk about it matters. Yeah, it matters for them to maintain the color law operations because no such people exist. However, there is a nom de guerre operations of people who are categorized under the Christian black codes that are stated as U.S. property on the stock market, 55 Water Street, whether it's marriage certificate, birth certificates, and other instrumentality that actually fund the criminal operations of the U.S. corporation, members of the Roman Curia, who have been pretending for a couple, well, over 100 years, pretending to be a nation state.
Habits for Life wants to know your thoughts on the mothership.
The mothership or ships? See,
The
is
mothership.
Singular and affirmative. You see,
Well,
but
you
the
know-
deal of it is, let's get real.
Yes. Okay.
We've had an in-worlders and off-worlders dealing with us from time immemorial. There never was a time when that was not the case. Consciousness of it and qualifications of us doing what you would call rational communications with them on moral and ethical platforms has been interrupted for quite some time, and therefore the people have not been as familiar as they should be with communications past and some that are present that are being held back from you at this particular time. But the position is there are many ships from many different star groups. So the mothership is kind of like
Making this the
not exactly
supreme.
correct. It's like saying, it's sort of like saying the nation that we deal with rather than the nations that we deal with. That's a better way of looking at it.
Okay. Let's see what else has comments. Malik Day says, well, if the land according to Taj is Morocco, then wouldn't we be more Moroccans as the French is French Moroccans and Spain is Spanish Moroccans?
Sure, because Spanish is a word that's made up to hide Moorish history, and French is actually not hybrid European, but actually Central African. So, what's your point?
Well, I guess he's asked.
No, there's an assumption that French means hybrid European. That's what it is. And I just corrected it. It's African. It's Berber. And this is back to people, people not comprehending or the history of Iberia and thinking that as soon as you say you're talking about the hybrids. Nope, you're talking about Iberia. If you're talking about Spain, how about Al-Andalusia? This is again how the reconstruction of history has actually put our people into a state of what is called denial.
No question.
And also, this is why psychiatrists often, when they refer to many of the Asiatics of North America, they have problems dealing with our people socially, economically, and politically, because it is known that most of our people exist in a state of what is known as disassociation. Write that down. So understand why they don't necessarily speak to you directly in your face about it. This is the view that most people that come from other nation states are already made aware of when having to deal with our people in North America, that these people suffer from disassociation, so don't seek to have a rational conversation with them. However, they will make you rich if you use fundamental international laws and establish business in their territories, because they have no knowledge of a state or right of a state, and they will make you wealthy.
JK wants to know why you call Earth Midgard Earth.
Because that's the name of this particular Earth. It's not the only Earth. The fact that Earth simply means inhabited place. And the fact that the people have been not taught the truth about not only their Asiatic African history, they have not been taught the truth about this firmament that we know as the planet Earth. The planet Earth that we have known is a general statement given to Midgard, which is the name, the nomenclature for this particular earth. Go into your older dictionaries prior to probably 1960 and go look up Midgard. It is the habitation of man.
Okay, it's another question. Dave's asking a lot of questions. If Noble Drew Ali derives his authority from the great Quran of Muhammad, why did he deposit our authority in a corporate deposit and not in a Moorish government?
You already understand and comprehend that Drew Ali established government. He established the civic organization known as the Moorish Holy Temple of Science. He adopted the affidavit, the religious affidavit in 1928 because the infiltration of the movement under COINTELPRO operations led by the FBI, and particularly metered under the J. Edgar Hoover administration known as COINTELPRO. Although they only admit those operations in around 1966, they've always been operative and ran from the Circle Church and Chancery off Fleet Street, England, that has been operating all the judicial systems and operations at North America under color of law and under deception of the colonial operations of the United States, which is a colonial offshoot from Austria, belonging to the Popes of Rome and the Jesuit order and the Queen of England in their Trinity operations, which we'll see demonstrated with the flag that's flown at Washington, D.C., with the 3 stars and the 2 bars. There you go. Raleigh did what was necessary at the time for the preservation and the learning and the erudition of our people, and he made it very clear, know this to be the truth. The half has not been told. If I told you everything, you would go back to sleep. Study, and study well. And when you would have studied well and would ask me what to study next, I would reply, study yourselves. That's your answer.
Magneto TV says, looks like to me there will be another 1871 all over again.
That's what's going on right now. Except it's being reversed. It's absolutely what's going on right now. The same coup d'etat that took place against the Abraham Lincoln administration is the same coup d'etat that was executed against Donald Trump. Don't look at him as the single unit being. Look at him as a face to a principle. Don't get caught in personalities. Look at principle.
J. Kane asks, if I was forced to sell my house due to an increase in property taxes, is it possible to sue the tax collection authority?
Of course, the deal of it is, but now this is back, isn't this back to the bill of particulars that we're talking about now? Didn't we open up by letting you know that tax on private property is unlawful? So are addressing the issue of selling your estate when you don't want to do it, being forced, then that's a fraud, isn't it? So that's a criminal action, isn't it? And what if, and you know, this is where we've been leaning for quite some time, trying to get our people to a level of consciousness that they would redirect their energies that have been wasted for generations in different clubs and organizations that have not addressed the reality of the loss of their birthright. The real deal is that the people should be, in general, firing these people with official documents and also suing them in their private and alleged official capacity via international venue through consular venue, constitutional and treaty violations, etc., and thereby taking their power away from them. But you already know, because they're organized criminals and that the Circle Church and Chancery Crown members control the corporate state courts, that there is no due process in those courts. That's again why we've been telling people for decades to enforce the Constitution for the United States, which enforces the treaties. The venue is Article 3 courts. Read it, and it becomes obvious to you that we ourselves have been violating ourselves by not approaching all of our matters with them relative to persons and property via a consular court venue. This is why they don't teach it. It's why they don't teach civics, because they don't want you to know that. And this is why a lot of Moors that have been less than honorable get upset when we mention Article 3, Section 2 of the Constitution for the United States, because the venue for the communication of diversity of nationality is consular court. And that's a fact. Doesn't mean whether people like it or not, or whether they agree or not. That's the established law of the land.
Okay, this question is for me. Okay. From I Am Empress Europa L. I'd like Dr. G to speak on the old Pisces era with her having a pastoral background. I'm curious to know if she was exposed to this information at any point. Only at the point of my spontaneous awakening on December 18th, 2010, when I had my out-of-body experience. But up until that point, going through Bible college, getting the, all the way up to a doctorate degree, never. Twice. Yeah, I got, a bachelor's and a master's and a doctorate in theology. No, I was not exposed to this. I was given the dogma to teach other people the dogma, but the awakening came from outside of myself.
Give them a quick synopsis. No, they need to know
about this. It just,
tell a quick synopsis.
I was sitting in a prayer breakfast, and I left my body sitting in a chair and missed the whole service. And when I came back into my body, everything was over. And I was given a mandate to reawaken minds, to stop lying. No, stop lying. That's what it said, and tell the truth. And so the truth began when I said, okay, the truth began coming down to me in downloads and floods. And later on, several months later, I found information by, I think, Zachariah Stitchin and the other guy. And a lot of the stuff that had come to me in downloads was in their materials. But it came to me as a download. So no, I did not get any of this information when I was actually pastoring. But what I attempted to do was to bring it to the congregation, and they rejected it heavily, called me a witch and some other things, tried to throw me out of the ministry that I started. But that ministry evolved into House of Reawakening Minds. And so that's why we're where we are now, 10 years later. That answers your question. Let me see. If there is another question. What? Okay. Habits for life. Why is it de facto corporation giving so much private paper notes to those who file taxes? I don't think it's for relief.
It's for dependency and to make themselves relevant, because they're being made irrelevant. Keep in mind, those of you who have been keeping up with the House of Reawakening Minds for these last 11 years that we've been sharing through the Moore's Order of the Round Table, we told you years ago that the nations of the earth were going to stop dealing or trading with the United States corporation, and that they would stop buying U.S. Treasury bonds, and that it was only a matter of time that you would start having a feedback loop. If many of you have been with us at the House of Reawakening Minds for the last 11 years, you'll know that we've been telling people this for quite a few years. What you see is that taking place right now. So a lot of the political dynamics that you see taking place now is in fact what we told you what would happen already. So therefore, what you have is a rejection of trade. They're disguising it with viruses and everything else, but the reality is that they're not accepting the private commercial paper of the Circle Church and Chancery operators, also known as the Federal Reserve Board for the United States Corporation of Austria under the Secret Treaty of Verona. and they're not doing business with them. And therefore, I'm sure that many of you have noticed how lumber prices have gone up triple and sometimes quadruple, and that they've been jacking up the gas prices, and that they have been artificially restricting the service lines to the gas, etc., and figuring out more ways to rob and tax the people, because the fact of the matter is that their source of revenues is being choked off by the rest of the civilized world. Although they still have their shadow government criminal operations and military complex and pharmaceutical complex that they've been using against the people, which is being exposed more and more by themselves, by their blatant activities, etc. And so the economic problems that the people are suffering from is because their attachment to them, and the fact that they refuse to render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. They're suffering the results of Caesar's works. And this is, again, back to the necessary fact for the people to declare their nationality and start declaring their lost estate. And again, part of it, and this is a small part of it, is what we're talking about now, which is the Bill of Particulars, in relationship to their bills of attainder that they've been issuing in the name of their taxing the nationals and the people of the land to save their defunct and bankrupt corporation that has been guised or imposed upon the world as a nation state, which it was not, is not, and never will be.
I'm just going to say, Lawrence Graywolf, I've already asked you to repost your question. I cannot see it. After a while, we can't go back. So I don't see your question. Please stop asking me to ask it. Just repost it. Thank you. Let me see. Kenneth Martin asks, should we have open lines of communication with our Sultan?
Now, this is the deal. Know the difference between empire and kingdom, and comprehend that the empire has been invaded. You're looking for superiority to yourself when it's actually you. This is back to us, the people of the North, getting organized and enforcing the existing law, because as you already know, most of the jurisdictions around the world have been compromised with puppets. It's not to degrade or disparage anyone, but to tell you the truth of the politics. This is why it's necessary to teach our people civics, because they keep looking outside of themselves for the cure, and the cure is with you. Furthermore, for those of you who may not comprehend what's going on in this Aquarian light and energy, the political platforms as you have known them are being dissolved anyway, and they're not going to function as they have. Most of these exercises that you're doing now, mentally and politically, are necessary for your development to actually jump you up into higher degrees of comprehension and of operations anyway, by necessity of us being stagnated for so many generations. And so many of the things that we have been aspiring to do for these past years as an exercise, understand and comprehend that they've only been exercises, but necessary exercises, but you're going to graduate far beyond that, both technologically and by what you would call ethereal spiritual development. However, these exercises are necessary for you to handle the radical, and I mean actual radical changes that you're experiencing and that are going to accelerate by the day. That's with all due respect to all people's positions.
Just trying to see if this individual rather reposted their question. I don't see. Just trying to find your questions. Oops. To the private side. What happened? Comments. They disappear after a while.
Yeah, I apologize. Explain them because they're moving
Yeah,
so fast.
they
that
move
you
so
can't
fast
keep
and
up
then
with them.
they disappear. The earlier ones disappear. So that's why I can't, so we keep asking over and over. I can't ask what I can't see. I do apologize that I didn't see it. Oh, someone says, yes, Taj, lumber, need relief. Lumber is quadrupled. We know that.
But that's what we've been telling you all for years so that you can prepare yourselves.
Yeah, Patricia Tia, Sister Tia says, can you briefly address the Bay Islands millennials on right now regarding nationality? They have been academically oppressed by the suppression of their mother tongue, English, and miseducated in Spanish.
Now, keep in mind, there's no such language as Spanish. That's Moorish Latin. That belongs to you. And English is simply what you would call Gullah Creole trade language, and that's universal. So don't look at it as belonging just to the hybrids that deal with the international trade of Phoenicians, which is also yourselves. A lot of times we keep assuming or condemning things that actually belong to us by associating it only with the hybrid Europeans just because of the corruption that humanity has been experiencing this last 100 and so years, etc. However, understand the corruption has been on all sides, and it's not just the hybrid Europeans who have been corrupt, it is also many of the Moors who have been corrupt. And so these fundamental principles must be taught back to you in order for us to together, in many fronts, start fixing this corruption that all of us have participated in, some deliberately, and some through mind control and miseducation. However, the results has been damage to humanity at large. Thus, the Moorish Divine and National Movement was established officially as a countermeasure to the Unum Sanctum operations. Doesn't mean that the people that are exercising this knowledge are more correct or more right than anyone else. It means there's a sincere platform effort to help in the uplifting of fallen humanity, and we have to pull each other's coattail constantly to keep us on the right path. I yield the floor.
Okay. Well, we said we were only going to